Hey, it's Jordan with the Young Turks, TYT Politics. I am here in Flint, Michigan. It is a very, I would say, momentous time right now in Flint. Not because the leaves are changing, not because the food is so good. Ty had a four-course meal last night, and now he's not feeling so hot. We were driving in last night, and I got a breaking news alert that Governor Rick Snyder, who, if you've been following me, unlike the rest of the pulled off corporate media, I've been telling you is frankly guilty as hell and knew about the water crisis long before he says he did. It came out that in testimony yesterday in Health and Human Services Director Nick Lyons' case, he's one of the first big government officials here in Michigan that are being charged with manslaughter. The head of the Urban Initiatives Department, who was Rick Snyder's self-appointed, you know, he was leading the response to the state of Michigan for the Flint water crisis. He said Governor Snyder and he had a phone call about the Legionnaires outbreak, the Legionnaires outbreak that ultimately killed 12 people that we know of in December of 2015. Well, Rick Snyder, not only to the residents of Michigan, but in front of Congress, said that the first time he heard about Legionnaires was in January of 2016, and the next day, he held a press conference. So you might say, well, what's the difference? December, January. Well, if you're talking about a mass contamination outbreak, a couple days could make a difference, let alone a couple weeks. More importantly, if it is now known that he lied about when he knew about the Legionnaires outbreak, who's to say he did not know about it earlier than that phone call in December? So let me read you real quick exactly what Rick Snyder had said to Congress. He said, in terms of Legionnaires, I didn't learn of that until 2016. And as soon as I became aware of it, we held a press conference the next day. That was clearly a case where the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, which, like I said, Nick Lyon is being tried, should have done more to escalate the issue and get it visible to the public and to me, is how Snyder testified when asked about the outbreak by Congressman Tim Walberg. The announcement of the outbreak came in January 2016. I'm here with Sam Inglot. You are Deputy Communications Chair for Progress Michigan. You guys have been working pretty much since the water crisis, everything from helping local organizations in their activism with everything from water distribution to accountability for politicians. You also work on other political issues. You guys obviously responded to this, but what's your initial thoughts? Because to me, if we actually lived in a democracy that has laws that apply to everybody, Rick Snyder, like now, at the very least, would have some FBI or police at his door questioning him. As far as I know, that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, so when we saw this news, I mean, obviously it was one of the biggest breaks in this story that we've seen in a while. And ultimately, the question needs to be asked, and Rick Snyder needs to answer it. Did he lie before Congress? I mean, because clearly Harvey Hollins saying that Governor Snyder knew about Legionnaires prior to when he told Congress, that's huge. I mean, lying to Congress and lying to the people of Flint, that's a huge break in this story. It just kind of starts to poke even more holes in Snyder's claims about what he knew and when he knew it. And ultimately, like you said, we need some accountability here, which is why we called on Bill Schuette, who's just kind of been politically grandstanding in Flint, trying to score political points off the backs of Flint families.
Just so you guys know what he's talking about, Bill Schuette is the Attorney General of Michigan. He is also, so he's in charge of the independent water investigation. So it's kind of like this Russia investigation, which is a whole other story. They have an independent counselor. So Schuette overall brings the charges, and there's a kind of a separate group of lawyers. The chief lawyer, his name is Todd Flood, that have been charging Nick Lyon and I believe 13 others. I could have my
15 in total.
15 others. So Bill Schuette has been the one at the press conferences announcing the charges. Bill Schuette, Attorney General, also now running for governor. Rick Snyder, his term ends next year. So Bill Schuette, you would think, he's a Republican, running for governor. Wouldn't there be a conflict of interest? Because if he charges the governor of Michigan, Well, those Republican donors ain't gonna like that. You know it's all about the money, Lebowski. So how could now that Bill Schuette is running for governor, he's still the attorney general. He hasn't made a statement on this, and Rick Snyder's office has said, "Oh, we can't comment on an investigation." Sorry. So
Yeah,
go on about Schuette.
Yeah, so we, as soon as we saw the news, we put out a statement, as we have been for the past few years, calling on Bill Schuette to do what everyone in Flint, everyone across the state has been calling for, and that's charge Rick Snyder. Rick Snyder has taken, I think it's somewhere around $3.5 million in public funds, money that could be going to the people of Flint, money that could be going to health, education, and job services. It could be going to fixing pipes, but instead, Rick Snyder's unilaterally decided to take millions of dollars in public money to defend himself, despite the fact that no charges have actually been levied against him. So, it's time for Bill Schuette to, stop with the showboating, stop trying to score political points, and get down and charge Rick Snyder.
Right. You know what I find interesting? I mean, the corruption in this country, like, there's really no way to explain it. It's so multi-layered and so brazen. But you have a governor. It's $6 million, by the way. $6 million that taxpayers have paid just for him. It goes up to $12 million when you couple in all these other state officials that their legal expenses are getting paid by you, the Michigan taxpayer, if you're from Michigan watching. Well, what if you are charged with manslaughter or anything like that? If Governor Snyder is basically getting your legal fees paid, are you going to give him up? Are you going to give him up when the police are grilling you? You're going to give him up if you told him anything before he says he knew about it? You're going to give up his brain trust and his executives around him? Let me tell you, if they were paying my legal fees, that could probably go into the millions, I'd have to think about it. And these people are a lot more, have a lot less integrity than I think I do. So it's rotten from the top. And either way, now that we know, the bottom line is he lied in front of Congress. Either Harvey Hollins is a liar, which why would he lie? He was entrusted by Governor Snyder to be the point person in response to the water crisis. So either he's lying or it's now proven that Snyder lied. This is not like a situation like Bill Clinton in the 90s. Well, it depends on what the definition of is, whatever the hell he said. Like, he explicitly said, I was told about it in January of 2016. I held a press conference the next day. Well, if you lied once, what else are you lying about? Right? So, another question. Governor Snyder, this is about Legionnaires in particular, but Governor Snyder says he didn't even know about the complaints from Flint residents until late 2015, early 2016. So does this kind of cast doubt on, separate from the Legionnaires, the overall complaints about discolored water, people getting sick, that kind of thing?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really hard to believe that the largest environmental and health crisis, like, in this state's history, just went completely unnoticed by Rick Snyder. And let's remember something too, that the reason that that Flint switched to the Flint River was because of a decision made by an emergency manager that was appointed and only accountable to Rick Snyder. Folks got to remember that Proposition 1, the emergency manager law here in Michigan, was actually overturned by a vote of the people. And then that decision was reversed by Rick Snyder and defended by Bill Schuette in court. So really, you've got this situation where really all fingers should be pointed at Rick Snyder. Everybody should be looking up, not down. It's good that that people are, hopefully being held accountable for this. But like I said before, everybody since this crisis happened has been wanting Rick Snyder to be held accountable. They want to see charges levied against him. And it's very difficult to believe that when you got residents calling and complaining, you've got the local health department concerned about Legionnaires, you've got even the state health departments, beginning to talk about Legionnaires in the middle of 2015, that Rick Snyder was just completely aloof when he was essentially running the city through his emergency manager that led up to this crisis. So, Snyder's entire testimony, his entire timeline of events needs to be called into question. And again, it's just time for Bill Schuette, who is a lockstep Republican, to go after Snyder and finally levy some charges against him.
Well, there's several things. Number one, Bill Schuette, you can't run for governor and be the attorney general if, as attorney general, you're overseeing the case that potentially could prosecute the current governor, especially if you and that current governor are in the same party and publicly have a good relationship. I don't know. I mean, that seems like a conflict of interest to me. So the bottom line is Bill Schuette, who, I mean, I don't live in Michigan. I've just heard from other people, is kind of just like your average political corrupt robot. At the end of the day, why is it that, Harvey Hollins testified this yesterday, again, saying that he spoke with Snyder a month before? Well, why doesn't Schuette know about this before? Because from what I hear from people in the courtroom, they abruptly, after he said this, ended the court day.
Oh, wow.
Like, oh, because I had a few people in the courthouse that were feeding me information. So you end right then and there. Snyder's now quiet. Schuette's now quiet. Is there anything called accountability in America? I mean, this is like the headlines I've seen from corporate media are kind of like, oh, contradictions, and kind of like, no, there's no contradictions. He lied. He lied. Unless you're saying Harvey Hollins is a liar and he was under oath, and why would he lie? He lied in front of Congress. That's called perjury. I know in America we do not jail bankers. I know in America we do not jail pharmaceutical executives. I know in America we do not jail big oil executives. But I think why this is so important, it's not just about Flint, it's not just about Michigan, but if from the top, whether it's a president, a governor, it doesn't matter, if these people are not held accountable, then the people doing this in other areas, whether it's poisoning their citizens, whether it's allowing their police department to brutalize people, talking to you, St. Louis, whether it's allowing politicians to just bend over for corporate America and do a lot of illegal business, they're just going to keep doing it if nobody significant goes to jail. That's why it's important. Sorry for my high horse. Now, let's talk about now, because Rick Snyder technically still runs Flint. There is no emergency manager. That went away, but there is a 4-person board. It's called the Receivership Transition Board. It's basically like the mayor has to go grovel in front of a board to get anything passed, to get money, and Rick Snyder appointed these people. So, bottom line is, not only has he lied, but Flint does not even have democracy at this point because their elected officials can get overturned by this board, and they have.
Yeah, the emergency manager law, frankly, has just been an absolute disaster for Michigan. I mean, we've seen what it has done here in Flint, but basically what it has done is take away the voting rights of communities across Michigan and really communities of color. I mean, we're talking about minority-majority communities that have systematically been divested from, have had their public goods sold off, and most importantly, have had their democratic rights stripped away. So, I have to think that part of Bill Schuette's reluctance to charge Rick Snyder is the fact that Bill Schuette defended the emergency manager law in court. If Rick Snyder and Bill Schuette hadn't ignored the will of the people who resoundingly said, we don't want emergency management in this state, if they had listened to the people, we wouldn't be here right now. Just going back to Rick Snyder's testimony, something that I recalled earlier today as I was on my way over here was that Progress Michigan, we organized several trips to D.C. with Flint families, and we actually had folks in D.C. for when Snyder testified, and we issued an open letter to Rick Snyder. We sent it to his office. We published it publicly, and one of the questions was, did you know about Legionnaires' disease prior to when you claimed in January of 2016? And like I said, I just recalled that today, and it makes me sick to think that not only did he lie to Congress, but he lied to everybody in Flint. And beyond that, people like Bill Schuette scoring political points on the backs of Flint families without charging somebody like Rick Snyder. And let's be clear, Bill Schuette is not a very good attorney. He's lost plenty of cases. He's gotten laughed out of court for his defense of our marriage equality ban. A judge said he was guilty of superficial posturing for trying to play both sides of a court case regarding water delivery in Flint. He lost a straight ticket ban court case. So Bill Schuette's not a very good lawyer. So it it sickens me to think that Bill Schuette might be trying to score political points on the backs of Flint families, and then they don't get justice in the end. So that's what we need to make sure. And what I'd urge people to do is call, I believe it's Trey Gowdy. He is the chair of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman Dan Kildee has called to reopen looking into Snyder's testimony.
Trey Gowdy, by the way, famous for the Benghazi hearings over Hillary Clinton. Yeah.
What we could use right now is some Benghazi ferocity to look into Rick Snyder, where people were poisoned, where people died from Legionnaires' disease. And another thing that we have to know is that I've heard stories from Flint families where they say, oh, I remember I had these pneumonia-like symptoms. I had a really bad flu. Friends, family members, things like that. And so the Legionnaires outbreak could be much bigger. I think that should definitely be looked into, and then there should be some follow-up there because, we know that 100 people or so were diagnosed, 12 people have died, but we need a full investigation into what exactly happened.
Well, I'm actually going to do some other interviews today with people who kind of have some expertise on the water and the lead and all that, so I won't, get you bogged down in that. But, bottom line is, look at the headlines, which you're not seeing coverage on CNN. You're not seeing coverage on the New York Times. Just came out that Flint has some of the highest infant mortality rates in the country. Yeah. Miscarriage. I mean, I'm not going to tell you her name. Another woman that I've interviewed literally just had another miscarriage. She lost her 2 twins after the water switch. Just had another miscarriage the other day. Sources that I've talked to, literally have had to drive with their children to Mexico for dental care because the government won't pay for their medical bills attributed to teeth falling out because of lead poisoning. This isn't a democracy. This is basically an authoritarian dictatorship that if you get poisoned, you pick up the tab. And I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care. It's not really about neoliberalism versus conservatism. It's not really about progressive versus conservatism. It's just about right or wrong, right? Let's give Rick Snyder and these people the benefit of the doubt and say, well, they didn't intentionally do it. They didn't intentionally switch the water, knowing it would poison people. I'd really hope not. I would hope they're not complete sociopaths. But the response has been intentional. And I don't understand. Let me tell you something, okay? If I, as a journalist, made a statement in front of Congress saying I did not plagiarize or I did not do X that they wanted to know about, and then a government official counteracted that, a government official in court counteracted that, not only would there be a lightning army for my head, but I'd probably have police knocking at my door the next day.
And it's important to note, too, that, Harvey Hollins isn't just a guy that got Rick Snyder's coffee in the morning. The phrase aid, can get a little... He was Rick Snyder's point man with dealing with the Flint water crisis. So his testimony should definitely go a long way because he was the point man. He was the one dealing with the crisis on a day-to-day basis. And we just need to cut through the noise. We need to cut through the BS, and we need to see some charges against Rick Snyder. He's taken millions of dollars from the people of Michigan for his legal defense, and his office has said it's about processing paperwork and all this kind of stuff. But, he's trying to protect himself instead of protecting the people of Flint. The people of Flint have had some very simple demands, some demands that would go a long way in helping make Flint whole. Fix the damn pipes. Get the pipes replaced. Why we're still talking about pipe replacement years into this is beyond me. Why all the stops weren't pulled out to make this happen is just, it's inexcusable. Health and education services for the people of Flint. Like you said, I mean, if people are, struggling with Medicare, with medical care, if they're having to drive to other places, if they're having miscarriages, that Washington Post piece, I think, really shined a light on just how bad the health problems have been with the infant mortality. And I know women as well that have lost children from this. Right. I mean, families have been really scarred because of this, and we need to fix the pipes. We need health and education services for the people of Flint, job placement programs, and Rick Snyder needs to be held accountable.
You know what? Listen, I know there's a mayor's race coming up. The mayor's getting recalled. I've reached out to the mayor's office to try to interview her this week. Haven't heard back yet. But I've always said this. I mean, I'm a journalist. I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's all good, like protesting at City Hall. But I've always said you're protesting at City Hall while Rick Snyder has his feet up in his office, looking like, oh, I'm off scot-free. As far as I could tell, Rick Snyder's office is in Lansing, Michigan.
And at this point, his head is in the sand. I mean, he's been really silent for the past few years. We haven't seen him much except when he's signing a terrible bill that Republicans have rammed through the legislature. But he said in January of 2016 at his State of the State address, when thousands of people were outside of the Capitol calling for him to go to jail, calling for him to be held accountable, he said, "I'm sorry and I will fix it." Where are we at today? Why are you? I mean, Jordan, you've had to come here how many times now? We should not be at this place. Mm-hmm. This is one of the biggest disasters in the state history. All the stops should have been pulled out. We shouldn't be giving billions of dollars to corporations every year in unaccountable tax handouts when the people of Flint can't even drink their water.
Right. And I wanna read a viewer comment, which I think is pretty damn spot on. So Kenny Mitchell says. And you're never going to put Rick Snyder in jail. You guys need to quit bitching about it. Well, I disagree with that. No way. No. How are you going to treat Rick Snyder the way Kwame Kilpatrick was treated? Kwame Kilpatrick was the African-American mayor of Detroit. If Rick Snyder was a black man that was governor, he would be in jail by now. Kwame Fitzpatrick was under the jail by now. Kwame Kilpatrick was put in jail. I don't know the whole story, but corruption or something like that.
Yeah, corruption, misusing funds.
And you know what, Kenny? Bingo! You're right. If Rick Snyder was an African-American man of the people, I don't know if Kwame Kilpatrick was. I did hear he was kind of corrupt, and there might have been hookers involved, but hey, gotta live, right? Yeah, no, you're 100% right.
And rightfully so. Like if the governor of Detroit was corrupt, he need his ass in jail. If he's manipulating the system and taking the money, okay, the mayor of Detroit, if he was corrupt, he needs to have his ass in jail. So the same thing with the governor of Michigan. If you're corrupt, you need to have your ass in jail.
But this is beyond corrupt. I mean, this is, I think, manslaughter. If you know about something like, that's why Nick Lyon is on trial right now. He was the director of Health and Human Services. He knew about Legionnaires and all these other things for a year and pretty much did nothing. And he's being charged. So if all DC, they love it with Watergate and Russiagate and all these things. It's always like who knew what, when, where, and why. Well, why aren't we applying this? In fairness to my friend Rachel Maddow, I did not watch her show last night. I don't know if she talked about this, so I want to give benefit of the doubt. If she did, I apologize. I doubt you did. But even if you did, well, why aren't you here? You got a much bigger budget than I have. Ty and I have been schlepping all over the Midwest the last few days. My back hurts. Ty's can barely stay up. We're here. And we were here even before this news came out. We were coming back for other reasons to keep it in the news. So why isn't Rachel Maddow? So Rachel Maddow, she'll come and she'll, break the Flint water crisis when it's convenient for her. But if it involves a very powerful government official that's clearly lied to the people, crickets. I guess Russia's not involved. And again, apologies if she did cover it on the show. I don't watch her show. But you got to do more than cover it for 3 minutes and then move on. This is a governor of a major, major state. Remember, Michigan is kind of was the home of the American middle class. Detroit, Flint, General Motors, a lot of steel plants, the auto industry.
Labor unions. I mean, Michigan is the birthplace of the middle class. The labor movement really kind of got its start here, and unfortunately, what we've seen over the years, and especially since Republicans took, and that's another thing too, is that people kind of have this idea that Michigan is a hardcore blue state, but the fact of the matter is, Republicans have controlled every level of state government since 2011. They have stripped away voting rights at the local level in communities of color. They've slashed billions of dollars from local revenue sharing. It really, while also busting the unions and attacking the workers' rights that helped build Michigan to what it was in its heyday. We got crumbling roads and infrastructure. We've got an attorney general that is more interested in suing the EPA to try to stop toxins from being dumped into our air and water than protecting the people of Michigan. So what we really need is we need people to be active all the time here in the state. We need people calling for accountability at every level, because we've got a systematic problem here. We've got a problem with systematic racism. We've got a problem with systematic divestment from communities, and we've got a representation problem. We really need to, fix the problems like gerrymandering. So, the problems in the state are I could spend all day talking about them, but the one of the biggest things, the biggest beacon of problems that we have in the state is in Flint. And it's just absolutely shameful that for years we've been talking about it, and the people of Flint still can't trust their water. They still haven't been made whole. Bill Schuette's still trying to score political points off of Flint, and Rick Snyder is still collecting millions of dollars from the taxpayers to defend himself against charges that haven't even been levied yet.
And I want to point out a few things before we end. Reminder, the citizens of Flint and Michigan have paid for Rick Snyder's army of criminal defense attorneys to the tune of $6 million. I might have the number wrong. It might be more than that now. That's vile. That's number one. Number two, my favorite troll, Jerry Ross. He's back in action. Haven't heard from you in a while. I see you active. Jerry, what's it going to take? What's it going to take? Is it going to take a big oil executive? Is it going to take a governor to literally shoot me on camera in the head for you to understand I am on your side, Jerry? I'm on the people's side. When are you going to learn, Jerry? I love you. Love you. Yeah, Jerry.
Why shared the video the other day.
I didn't see Jerry tweeting on my behalf when I was in jail. He
shared the video.
Oh, did he?
That's the video he shared.
And did he say, good, you deserve to be in jail?
No, he said you deserve it.
Oh, yeah. Well, Jerry, the hell out of here.
Shared it, though.
Yeah, I'll invite you to my wedding.
What up, Jerry?
Number three. Here's the bottom line. As much as Rick Snyder needs to be held accountable, right now, if you want to do something, every single person watching, every single person you know, friends, family, it doesn't matter. The number you should call is Attorney General Bill Schuette. He is in charge of this investigation. He's either wants to run for governor or be Attorney General. You can't do both at the same time and not have a conflict of interest. Well, now he knows that Snyder was arrested. Was lying. So you're either going to immediately bring him in for questioning and make that public so the public can have transparency. You're also, where is the Democratic Party? I know it just came out yesterday, so I'll give you a day or two. But if this was Trump and it was exposed that he lied about anything with Russia, you'd have a hearing 5 minutes ago. Why isn't the Democratic... I haven't seen a damn thing from the DNC or anything on this. And it's almost 24 hours. I don't expect the Republican Party to call for accountability. Why isn't the National Democratic Party saying... all I have heard is Congressman Dan Kildee, who, by the way, isn't exactly a profile in courage. That's a different story. But Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie... Again, this is not just about the state of Michigan. It's not just about Flint. That's where it hits home. That's the people who have been affected more. But until you hold these people accountable, bankers, government officials, it doesn't matter. We're going to continue to live in a fascist oligarchy, which is what we live in now. Closing thoughts?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Sorry.
Sure.
Here's a number. Write it down. 517 373 1110. Give it to you one more time. 517 373 1110. That's Attorney General Bill Schuette's office. And what I did there, I didn't tell you what to do. I just gave you the information. You see? So I'm not telling you to call. I'm just providing you public information.
Yeah, so definitely pick up the phone, call Bill Schuette, tell him that now is the time to act, to charge Rick Snyder, to get off his political grandstanding campaign and actually do something to hold the top person accountable for the Flint water crisis. In addition, if I can just get a little plug in, Progress Michigan, we're always interested in holding our elected officials accountable. We actually just launched a website called ShadySchuette.com, which features a litany of Bill Schuette's right-wing corporatist history. He's been in office for 30 years, and he's only been in it for himself and his corporate donors, which I think is one of the reasons why we haven't seen charges against Rick Snyder. He doesn't want to upset the party leadership. He doesn't want to upset, the DeVos family. He doesn't want to upset the big donors while he's trying to run the state. So check out the website, but first and foremost, call him, demand that he charge Rick Snyder. Now's the time for action. We can't wait any longer.
Thanks, Ben. And where could you find Progress Michigan?
We're at progressmichigan.org. We're on Twitter and Facebook too. Check us out.
Cool. We'll be live throughout the day. Stick with us. Peace.